Season 5 will make you feel gut-punched. We explore almost every human emotion one can, from devastation to joy. And all of it is just so guttural. It's the most visceral season by far that we've done.
My jaw hit the floor. I was like, what is this?
It was astounding.
Challenging.
The stakes are super high all the time.
This is a ton of responsibility for how we're going to portray these very precious and meaningful moments.
We are so much bigger than we've ever been.
And you can see that not only in the quality of the production, but in the quality of just fantastic talent.
Everything changes.
The cameras, the budget, the production, the sets, everything gets bigger and bigger.
The triumphal entry, the turning of the tables, the betrayal of Judas, the Last Supper. These stories take on new resonance. It's not just the reenactment of a famous Bible story. It is the significant step of a story that we have been telling for several years. It is a powder keg about to explode, and we know the players involved. We are now in season 5 of a show that people have seen enough to know that we're not going to do it in the same old way. We do things a little bit differently. We don't change the story, but the way we tell it, the way we take our time, gives us the ability to give you the cultural context, the historical context, and yes, the human context of these famous stories.
We focus on the lesser written about characters, and through that lens, we have to explore things like the societal pressures or the political intrigue that was going on. We have to explore this socio-economic landscape that Jesus was walking into. And we have to explore in an emotional way what the expectations were for 2 million pilgrims herding themselves towards Jerusalem that year, and how much Jesus would have upset all of it.
When we last leave off in season 4, Jesus is about to make his entrance into Jerusalem.
I was looking forward to filming this because I was looking forward to the spectacle of it. But it also sets up the rest of the season. It's almost more painful because you're so excited, especially Judas. And it's like the week just gets slowly worse from there. If you think of seasons 4 through 6, it's the most sad and in fact many ways devastating period of time in the show, and that can really become weighty. Well, in the midst of all that, we have this moment that's called the triumphal entry, this moment of triumph. Thomas is the only one who's not actively participating, but otherwise he's had it was a rough season 4. It was so humbling to have hundreds and hundreds of background actors there, all of whom were fans of the show, all of whom were making this scene real, to take themselves back to the first century and try to put themselves into this moment. Down there, they're going to be doing a little singing, a little chanting, a little mix and match. Some are saying Hosanna in the highest. Some are saying Hosanna to the Son of David. Some are just going, let's go. It was very emotional for all of us, and it was very exciting, and it was an opportunity to bring this scene to life, knowing, of course, that within days of the story it was going to turn. But for a moment, we had an opportunity to just portray joy on screen.
We go in, and this is the Messiah coming. It is a party. And it felt like that.
And you see all the palms waving. And it was so crazy filming it because you're walking through the city and you're seeing these thousands of extras just giving so much energy.
And you would hear them singing and cheering, and that sound, how that resonated, it was incredible.
And I'm looking around while we're filming and I'm seeing people crying. I'm seeing people going crazy like it's a concert for their favorite artist or something like that. And I don't know any other show that really has this kind of a personal connection with their fan base.
This is a whole other level.
I mean, it was a pretty remarkable thing to behold, how committed all of those extras were.
It's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it.
I know because I've been an extra myself. Not easy. A lot of hours, especially if you're outdoors, you have to deal with the weather, and they were living this as if it were Jerusalem in the first century, and they were making us feel it as well.
That was one of the coolest moments in the history of this show.
Those were some really, really fun days. And then it goes downhill, yeah.
And I think even Jesus is overwhelmed with the reception Deep down, there's this underlying sadness because he knows what's to come 5 days from that point.
I just remember in season 1 talking to Jonathan and just like we're realizing that like in the future, there's certain moments in the Bible that like maybe we'll get to see. And one of those was Jesus overturning tables and like cracking the whip. And like, I've never really seen that depicted in any sort of story about Jesus.
As we're getting closer and closer to the cross, you'd think the show is getting more sad and more devastating, but this season kicks a little butt. We see Jesus taking some people down, and that's exciting, that's fun, right? Jesus is coming in and defying expectations. He has literally upset the apple cart.
We have never seen him act like that, ever. And so I think the disciples are all very concerned, obviously, for their friend and their rabbi.
It can be a little hard legally to try and explain. It's like, no, my friend's a good person. He just, had to do that. And he's maybe also the Son of God.
A lot of the disciples are arguing, like, was that okay to do? People were getting trampled.
Jesus is basically saying, this is not the way that my Father would want this run. This isn't love, this is selfishness, this is greed.
The people who are getting their tables flipped over, you can see that as an attack, or you can see that as an invitation for change.
Get used to different.
And man, when you see it, and you see it fleshed out with hundreds of extras, things set on fire, and animals running every which way, it's real, it's happening.
Action.
Awesome, cut.
It's a different side of Jesus. There's no more gentle nudging. It's time to push through.
I mean, anytime you have somebody disrupting finances, somebody's going to get pretty upset.
He's almost inviting the retribution from the religious leaders.
If you can imagine the confirmation bias that the Pharisees and Sadducees must have had with this man confronting them in that way, it suddenly elevated the threat that he posed to a different level than had existed before.
He said that no more animals were to be brought through, and then also the vendors couldn't sell the animals anymore because they had been scattered, and it threatens the existing power structures, particularly of the empire. They did rely on taxation of the market. That was a huge source of income. And so to have that cut off and sort of choked by Jesus puts him in the crosshairs.
The religious leaders are put in this position by Jesus where the only way to go to his side would be to denounce everything that they have lived for their entire lives. I mean, think about how challenging it would be to go, this guy is telling me that my entire life to this moment has been based on a flawed system. My whole life, my career, my ministry must change dramatically. And I must serve now someone and potentially something new that on the surface seems completely counterintuitive. When he says, if they believe he can raise the dead, why wouldn't they assume it? Precisely! Yeah. Yes! You're proving my point. Okay. That's when you can really start to up the ante.
I love when I hear from people who support and watch the show that thanks to the story of Shmuel, they're a little more patient with those that they disagree with, because they certainly see that somebody could be wrong. That doesn't mean they're a villain, they're not bad. I think that Shmuel is a cautionary tale and somebody that the audience seems to be rooting for many times because they really do want to see him be redeemed and find Jesus and be able to see the Messiah for who he is. And instead, they see somebody who is incredibly educated, who is incredibly passionate, who was raised as a student of Nicodemus. Only issue is that he's wrong about Jesus. But if it was anybody but Jesus, people would be glad that there is a religious leader who's trying to protect his people from a false prophet or a con man. Certainly there were those at the time.
So their instinct is always going to be, we must remove this thing that is interrupting and disrupting, and they maybe wanted it to go away quietly. Jesus wouldn't let that happen. He basically was like, no. The only way you're going to do this is to kill me, and it's got to be public. And they're like, well, the Romans have to do it because of our laws. And it's like he just put them in this impossible position where they have to work with their oppressors. In many ways, it's devastating. It angers us at times, but it should also make us sad when we see it play out.
And so we have to give a character like Caiaphas a reasonable motivation for doing the things he did. And we wanted to put him in a scenario where he had to act, where Jerusalem itself felt like it was at stake.
He's a very compromised man in that he deals with compromises all the time. That's the world in which Caiaphas exists. He has to exist in the world of politics. From Caiaphas' point of view, obviously Jesus is going to say, down with taxes, the Romans are going to come in and they're going to kill a lot of Jews, and I got to stop that.
The tragedy of this story is that these people didn't know they were putting the creator of the universe to death.
When we think of them all as a block and try to ascribe a quality to them all, like all Pharisees are bad or whatever, that just doesn't make sense. Even the apostles did not fully understand what Jesus was trying to tell them.
And this season's very exciting to watch because some disciples are further along in that understanding than others. Some understand what's coming, some are denying it, but know deep down. Some are just straight up confused.
We have the benefit, reading the Gospels and watching the show, seeing it 2,000 years later, fully understanding all of those things. So during Holy Week, when Jesus was talking to the apostles, it wasn't known as this famous moment in time. The disciples, they had this lens that they were witnessing all of Jesus' actions through, which is he's going to take over the world, he's going to assert his leadership as Messiah, and we're going to establish a new kingdom, and where we're not oppressed by the Romans. And every decision he's making and almost everything he's saying seems to counteract that. And yet they still believe in him, so they're just so confused. That's, for the viewer, very frustrating. You'd be like, come on guys, get it, you need to understand it. And you realize there's no way that they can understand it until they see it played out. And Jesus knows that, which is why he's laying these breadcrumbs.
Peter is seeing it through the lens of, I need to be the rock. Judas is seeing it from the lens of like, I need to light the fire under his butt. John is seeing it from the lens of like, I am your closest brother. So everyone is very tunnel vision while he is outside of the tunnel.
Sometimes you just can't hear it. It can't possibly be so, because that reality would be too devastating to bear.
I think it's a trauma response. It's like everyone's got their little knots and their traumas from their past, and so they don't want to see or face that shadow thing that is so painful underneath.
I know Mary and John are definitely starting to realize he is going to die, and he knows it, and he's not fighting that. He's walking towards it.
There is a scene in particular that was one of my favorites to film with the ladies, and it was so intimate and so sweet and so beautiful.
The whole thing has an air of it's funeral, and funerals have the hardest laughs and the biggest tears, so that's why there can be that kind of laughter, and then it quickly turns,
I remember the feelings of shooting some of those scenes and just being like, we couldn't get through them. And Dallas was like, no, don't cry yet, guys.
Don't feel like you have to be weighted down the entire scene, right? Leave some of that for the second half.
Whew, like we couldn't even make eye contact with each other because we would start crying. We hadn't even done the rehearsal yet. He was like, ladies, bring it back, dial it back.
That scene was devastating to film. And it was like an all-day shoot and just nonstop crying with everyone.
All of a sudden, it hits me like, oh, these are the moments that you're gonna miss the most. Breaks my heart just thinking about it.
It's not easy sometimes to receive an outpouring of love, and he is the outpourer of love and the comforter and the soother and the healer. Then Jonathan played it so beautifully. There is a little bit of uncomfortableness for him. He has to sit back and now receive healing and soothing and love and grace from all of these women.
It's not said explicitly that it's a Last Supper for us with him, but it feels that way. We know it is, I think. We all get to share with him during that scene how he is our God and thank him for what he's done for us. Just absolute heartbreak. There's no moment of joy for me. So Mary leaves and goes into the city at night by herself and then is, surprised by what happens.
So at the end of season 1, when Eric told me that he was leaving, that he had another opportunity that he had always wanted to pursue, of course, my first reaction was to be disappointed, because I'm thinking, I love working with Eric and he's a key member of the show, but also thinking, if we get a chance to do all 7 seasons of this show, which at the time wasn't sure that would happen, we really need Nicodemus back. And I think how it worked out was perfect.
Why did I say yes to this after I retired? Over the years, I've been a little wary about productions that are so large that the actors tend to get lost. But I don't think that's the case here. I think that the production values have just enhanced what has always been the central drawing factor of The Chosen, which is the script.
Now we look back at Nicodemus and see him as a hero in a lot of ways. He may not have been able to do enough to change the way things went, but things weren't supposed to go any other way. But we do see him trying to sway the Pharisees, and what a heroic thing to do in that moment, because no one else is going to do it, and they're not going to be listening to anyone else either.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a picture wrap on the great Eric Avari.
Have you ever imagined the Last Supper as a table full of people you know? Have you ever taken Peter or Matthew or Judas even off the stained glass and imagined what was at stake for them as Jesus told them things like, "You will consume my body and drink my blood"? We know that he said those things, but this is the essence of The Chosen, shifting perspective just a little bit and making it personal.
It is really interesting to explore the followers of Jesus in real time, trying to make sense of what he's saying, when the things he says will only make perfect sense after a resurrection. Even the audience is like, what are the disciples supposed to do with this?
There is so much information that Jesus lays on the disciples about what's to come and how things are going to play out.
His mortal life is winding down, and with that comes a kind of supernatural clarity that no one around him who, frankly, isn't about to die can wrap their heads around.
We don't see the end of the story yet. We're living in it as it's happening, and so it feels incredibly brutal. It did.
They don't even know what's to come. They don't know how bad it's gonna get, and they don't know how serious this is.
If you went and sat down with your parents and they go, so, this is the last meal that we'll ever eat together on this earth, you'd be like, I'm sorry, rewind that back?
He's telling us what we're all going to be doing, but we're all like, no, we're blindly, like, we don't see that yet. If you think about it for yourself, if someone tells you this is what you're like, no, I'm not gonna do this. This is not how I'm gonna act.
And I want to make sure we get kind of a Matthew, glitch in the Matrix look. Yeah.
The Last Supper, it's like a little bit of a dream sequence. Very, very ephemeral, airy, kind of out of place in time.
The narrative structure is probably not what you're expecting.
And they start off the first episode with the last part of the Last Supper and then go in reverse order as you get further and further down the line.
These are shocking entries. Every time we open, we're like, where are we? Why are we pushing you away from the truth? It's to get you actively back into the storyline. Because I want every time for us to flash into that scene, for us to have to reacquire the information.
And then to see them reeling from things that they don't understand and kind of spinning out and struggling.
It almost feels like what it would be like to experience it in real time.
Thankfully, we filmed all the episodes in chronological order.
And that was 12 to 14 hour days every single day that we're shooting those long scenes. And a lot of them are very emotional, and the stakes keep getting higher and higher.
It was incredibly draining, honestly, every single day, day after day. And you go in and you're sitting in the same stool, get home, shower, make some food real quick, go to sleep, wake up and you're like, at the Last Supper again. That's literally how it felt for 6 days.
There was an air in the room in the middle between all of us sitting there that I don't think I've ever felt before, and the way that everyone was committing to the scene was fantastic.
It's such a tender and somber moment.
What's sad is like that's the last time we're gonna be all together as a group. Story-wise, it is the last time before Judas turns.
So one of my favorite moments of the whole season is that exchange between Jesus and Judas. When Jesus tells him, whatever you're going to do it quickly. Judas had dark forces enter him. He was possessed by the devil. And so what's a way for us to illustrate that? Jesus is the one who reveals to us, and maybe even to Judas, that he is now no longer possessed by Jesus. And he says, he has you now. And Judas says, who? And Jesus says, not God. Ugh. Like, can you imagine realizing that? Can you imagine being told that? When he tells you it's not God, man, like, go. I don't even want you here. It's one of the most, if not the most heartbreaking moments in the entire show's history. The most famous betrayal in the history of the world, captured in just a handful of words. It's brutal. Tonight, as you may know, is Luke's last night with the group.
Thank you, my brothers. I love you.
It's very, very sad because I really love him. The character, you know, and the actor.
And I'm so glad that we're staying away from mustache twirling Judas.
We have walked with Judas, and we have learned to love him as a human being and all of his flaws, because in identifying his flaws, we have identified our own.
There's a little bit of Judas in all of us, if you really look at it that way. Just someone who really wants to do well. But fear also is very prevalent in all of our lives and can make us do very hasty things and make us doubt and make us make bad decisions.
Fear is a very strong motivator and also confusion and ignorance.
If you went full on a deal and it wasn't going the way you thought it would, you don't want to go back to that place where you were before, where everything was lost and you were nothing. Because that place hurts. Not even in an ego sense, but in a survival sense, it hurts. And so it's a moment of pure fear and instinct that Judas reacts in this way. Because he asked Jesus to save our people.
It's time. And if I don't do whatever big thing you've imagined I should do at this time.
He doesn't hear the no, not yet. He just hears no. And that breaks his heart. And so he decides, if Jesus isn't gonna save me, then I need to either make him save me and our people, or I need to find a way to save myself.
The story that we're telling now demands some unique approaches. So we give you a taste of the Garden of Gethsemane in season 4. And so hopefully that helps you understand a little bit better what's happening in season 5. When crushing olives are crushed more than once. But when you get to the purest pressing, the third press, the purest oil, it's for the high priests, it's for the anointing. And what's so rich about the Garden of Gethsemane is that Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane, a garden of olive trees. And it's interesting that in the Gospels, he 3 times gets pressed. 3 times he goes to the apostles and finds them asleep and comes back and is pleading with the Father and gets pressed so much that sweat comes out. In many ways, literally and metaphorically, he is becoming the high priest, the Messiah in this moment. And he is experiencing the full weight of that.
He's ground down to the point where he accepts his fate, his mission from the Father, knowing how terrifying that's going to be to fulfill.
So this is one of the most impactful moments in history, but also one of the most difficult to portray. How do we capture this super spiritual moment And the ways in which we portrayed that and illustrated what might have been going through Jesus's mind, I believe is one of the most challenging but ultimately fruitful things we've ever done.
The facts are pretty easy. He was there, 3 people were with him, they'd fall asleep, and he was arrested. But what was that experience like, emotionally, psychically, for the creator of the universe?
There's nothing in the Gospels that says that Jesus had end-of-life visions or that he was thinking about Old Testament history. But some of the things that we portray and that we put in front of Jesus in that scene are extraordinarily biblical. They're the most biblical. Abraham and Isaac, that extraordinarily famous moment where Abraham is asked by God to sacrifice his son. Well, that's of course an illustration of what's happening in this moment. Jesus is about to be sacrificed.
In another moment, he wanders into the valley of dry bones and experiences the hope and the possibility of redemption, of resurrection, of wholeness, even asking,
"Can these bones live? Oh Lord, only you know."
And the third and final moment in Gethsemane is one in which Jesus has been grappling with his heavenly Father about the enormity of what's before him. And so we've imagined his earthly father, Joseph, who himself has passed through the valley of the shadow of death.
It's such a heart-rending moment, having a father figure there to comfort you in your darkest hour and give you that comfort that you need to be able to get through what's next.
And so we don't know that Jesus would have thought of them for sure in this moment, but we do know these moments existed, that they are historical. And so having Jesus show us in this show what these moments might have looked like and for Jesus to actually experience them, I thought was an extraordinary way to illustrate both Jesus's mindset, but also biblical history.
It's the end of the line. There's no turning back. We know what's going to happen next, and time's run out.
Most people see the sin, and then they expect to see the growth past that. But it's much harder for people to see the growth of the human and then the downfall, and still accept their friend.
My friend.
From this point, from the arrest through his crucifixion and death, you now have Jesus in the fullness of his humanity, completely vulnerable from that moment forward. And I think that's not something people often think about. God just said, now you're going to take on the sins of the world and everything that comes with that, and feeling what that's like in reparation for humanity. And he does so completely willingly, which is just, how do you quantify that? It's impossible.
What Dallas has done is taken these classical, iconic stories that we've held at such a distance from ourselves, even though they're so intimately important to us. And he's taken them off a pedestal in a way that's allowed them to be so much more immediate. Prior to that, I think people have felt like there's a movie about Jesus and the disciples, okay, let me study it, as opposed to let me experience it.
We're taking the time to look at these characters and see their hearts fleshed open for audiences to see.
And you see these people who now have become much more real.
The show also creates conversation between people with different points of view.
This show, it's so compelling. It involves so many people to produce that magic.
We are all such good friends and a family.
Everyone brings it, and I think it's probably because of where we came from.
I don't know how season 6 is gonna go, but I can't imagine going through this with anybody else.
I am so proud of you and so proud to be associated with you. Working with you makes my job so much better, and I have bragged about you to so many people because so many people are bragging about you to me. So thank you for that, and I hope that you're back for 2 more seasons. But that is a wrap on season 5. Get some rest. Hey there, I'm Dallas. I'm the creator of The Chosen, and I'm on our set here in Italy. Now, I don't know where you are, but you are watching one of our videos. And if you have just a quick moment, you could hit that subscribe button or that notification bell if you haven't yet. You could hit the like button. You could make a comment. All of those things help get our videos out to more people and make sure that you're notified every time we have something new. See you soon.